Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Headkrack After Hours. Is a man whose integrity speaks volumes, man. You've seen him do a little bit of everything. He ain't slowing down no time soon. One time, y'all, for Orlando Jones. What up, my brother?
What up, fam? Thank you, man. I appreciate the intro.
Yo, man, it's such a pleasure to watch you work because you do such good work that sometimes we watch you work and we don't even realize it's you working, if that makes any sense.
Hey, incognito is the game.
Yo, you go deep covering some of these roles, like case in point. Like here I am, I'm watching the Good Lord Bird, and then I was like, yo, the real man looked like, nah, it can't be. Oh, snap, it is Orlando Jones. Hell yeah. Yo, salute to you on that, man. That was a solid, I hate that, the story is the story, so you can only go so far with it, man, but it was such a solid project,
Something
man.
big's coming.
Yeah, it's a beautiful project. I mean, I love the book. And so the Railman story in the book obviously is a bigger story, so you can only cover so much. But yeah, man, just hearing how the Underground Railroad actually worked, you know what I mean? Like how word actually got out, how messages really traveled. You know, we always hear a victim story, but they don't never tell us, like, you know, we never hear stories very often about Black men or Black women who during that particular time had the respect of everyone, no matter what color they were, and obviously had their struggles that they had to go through given what it was. But, you know, just we're not living the life as a victim. It's just, you know, for me, trying to find those type of roles and bring them to light is part of what I enjoy doing.
You know, and you're one of those people I like so much that when you die in things, I take it personally.
You and my mom. My mom is like, "Oh, I'm done. This right here, no,
What was the death? What was the character death of yours that your fans took the hardest?
Oh, that's easy. It was Frank Irving from Sleepy Hallow. The fans had a funeral, a real life funeral for Frank Irving. Pallbearers, fire truck, sermon, choir. They buried that dude.
You don't get the chance to see that a lot.
Dude, I'd never heard of somebody burying a fictional character before, but fans, and I understand it in the sense that, you know, Sleepy Hollow is obviously a story about good and evil, and Frank Irving represented, you know, good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He was a disciple. You know what I mean? Somebody who was willing to lay his life down for what he believed in. So I can understand the affinity for that part of it, but I'm sorry, you know, burying a TV character, that's next level.
You know, not a lot of people get a chance. They didn't bury JR, you know, but you found out it was fake. But
right?
You know, like they didn't bury Ghost, you know what I mean? But Frank Irving got that level of love, you know what I mean? So
they didn't bury Ghost.
You know,
on behalf of Power fans everywhere, I'm offended, damn it. I'm offended.
People loved Ghost, you know what I mean? They didn't bury Kanem either. But, you know, Orlando Jones, man, I just got to say, man, like, you know, there's so many pieces of your work that, you know, resonates with different people for different reasons. So let's just say if you, like, you know, started following your stuff in the 90s, you know, people knew you in the comedic space. And if people are just tapping in now, they know you as this super seasoned, well-rounded, all-around Renaissance guy who could really just adapt to any role. So let's go back into the early journey, like, you know, the MADtv days and all that stuff, man. How hard was it, you know, being a Black man in Hollywood, breaking in a predominantly, you know, white business, as it still is today, as some of your things you've been dealing with, you know, recently has evidenced, you know, how hard was it back then to get on?
I mean, I always think that, you know, if you can't change the situation, change your perspective. So I knew what it was, but I mean, I didn't have time to let that stop me from get to where, you know, where I was trying to go. Because everybody's got their, you know, their Achilles heel, right? Or what someone else perceives to be an Achilles heel about you, you know. Often for us, it's the color of our skin, but, you know, somebody else he's fat and they got sweaty palms, you know. It's a female, you know, I don't like the way that Black lady talks. Well, that's just the way she talks, so relax, you know what I mean? So I feel like we always have that. You know, it was an interesting time back then, and I kind of feel like a little bit like Groundhog Day. I feel like I've been saying the same thing for a really long time. When I was doing MADtv, I was the only cast member who was also a writer on the show. And the difficulty at that time was that when you're in the writing room, all they do is talk about how the actors suck and messed up, you know, what they wrote.
Right.
And when you're in the actors room, all they talk about is how what they gave them sucked, and they don't really get it. But when you're in both rooms, you can't talk. because you be giving up somebody and
Right.
pouring gas on an already burning fire. So difficulty one was finding myself in a situation where I'm on a sketch comedy show. I'm one of two black guys. They're not really using either one of us. I'm writing, and they're taking my stuff that I'm writing for other characters who are white, but they won't greenlight my stuff that I'm writing for me. So it was a weird scenario to kind of know where all the pieces were, but not be able to, but not blow anything up and not be able to really advocate for yourself because everybody knew that you were sitting in both rooms. So, people often say, oh, if you had this, it would be okay. But the truth of the matter is there's no way to tell people how to navigate the systemic nature of racism because it hits you in so many different places in the business. It hits you, before you get there. It hits you because you were diversity casting. They didn't even write this for somebody black. They wrote this for somebody that was white and female, and they decided to flip it, but it's not really written for you, your flavor, your style, or any black guy's style, really. You know what I mean? So you find yourself backing your way into things often, and that always had difficulty. But I think the first thing I said is the most important thing, which is that I couldn't change those situations. So I changed my perspective and tried to figure out how to do the best job I could do with what the opportunity was. I wasn't going to pass on the opportunity because it wasn't the perfect opportunity. I was going to maximize the opportunity and, try and get to the next level.
And it seemed like it's worked super well for you. Now, when you think about, back in the day, like what was the chance encounter or that event or that thing that changed everything for you to where like, okay, now you're in the game?
I honestly, dude, I still don't feel like that has happened. I've heard that so many times throughout my career where you're going to do like this is going to be the one. Oh, and I've had a lot of successes. So it's not like that, but I feel like with anybody who's disenfranchised, you always feel like the bar keeps being moved further away. They're like, if you do this in 40 minutes, you know what? Now it's in 60 minutes. I'm sorry. Now it's an hour and a half. Inflation. You're like, what?
Right.
How does that even work? So I still, when I was doing MADtv, that was supposed to be the big breakout, right? Because prior to that, I was a writer producer. So my big acting breakout was going to be MADtv. And, when I started doing sketch comedy, then it was, that's going to be, then when I started, doing 1 hour dramas, that's going to be, I started doing movies. That's going drumline. That's going to be, so I feel like I've really focused my attention on none of that. I care about the work and I care about the people that I get the opportunity to work with. All boats rise. I'm a coach's son. So I really do believe that it's about that team that I'm working with. And I try and put the focus on the work and not that. And the politics and how all that stuff falls out, there are people who really care about that, but I didn't become an artist because I wanted to be rich. I wanted to tell our story, and I didn't see people who looked like me, or I saw a lot of hood stories, but you know what I'm saying? Like I know what the hood is. I got family in the hood. I've been there plenty of times, but I didn't grow up there. There wasn't bullets whizzing by my head,
But you can relate.
Still married, so. You know what I mean? I was looking for a narrative that somehow I felt connected to that was real. And I didn't have a victim narrative. So telling me about, the struggle, I was like, yeah, but the way y'all describe the struggle is like somebody says the N-word and we can point them out. But the way the struggle really works on a day-to-day basis has nothing to do with that. It's more subtle. It's, it's more in some ways insidious. It's got a lot of other things going on. But that's too complicated, so nobody want to talk about that. So I really try and put that into the characters because I'm like, that's not too complicated. That's what it is day to day. And if we can talk about that and stop pretending that, if it's not happening in Selma, Alabama, then we're not telling a righteous story. I'm like, I don't know what y'all talking about. Our stories are just as righteous today as ever. It's just that the racism is different now.
True indeed. And it's crazy, how you say, like, you don't feel like that moment has happened yet because, from the outside looking in, and like this is part of the myths of what everything that is Hollywood, the smoke and mirrors, right? Even having a conversation with Marlon Wayans, who, from the outside looking in, you've created these things that has made so much money. You should be able at this point to kind of like write your own ticket and create whatever you want to create. And he's like, nah, man, I'm still out here doing comedy shows and, trying to work on that thing that's gonna like, get you all the way in. You even seen it happen with Shonda Rhimes. Like, she had to leave ABC over something that she felt was major. You know what I'm saying? That was major. It's a matter of respect. You're making all this money for this company that they could print Disney passes. And they fronted on the Disney pass. You're like, all right, cool. I'm taking my game over to Netflix. I holler at you. And now Bridgerton is killing it. #1 show on Netflix. And I'm sure the mouse is crying. But but that goes to say, about that line. They keep moving it back for us. I'm sure Ryan Seacrest doesn't have any of these struggles.
Probably. Definitely not. I mean, it's the nature of it, right? It's the nature of the way things kind of get put together, and that's why I say I realize there's a team that does something, but there's also just there's basic respect that often finds itself getting left out in circumstances and scenarios. Marlon is family, so we've talked about that before, and I think also that's just part of his hustle. I know it's part of sort of my own hustle and my own grind. I just don't feel like I'm there, and I try and put that in every piece of my work. But I also just think that I don't know that I ever want to lose that. Like, and I don't look at it like I'm fighting the man. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel that way to me. It just feels like if what I do and what I consider my art is to have any integrity, it's got to start with having integrity and meaning to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of my life, and I think again, Marlon and I've discussed not exactly this, but certainly things like this. And that is, you give too much of your power away by asking for acceptance. You don't need acceptance, right? I look at so many kids on Instagram and, and various platforms, Twitch, obviously now, that are doing their own thing that can't get arrested in the mainstream business, but are making a full-blown living doing their own thing. For me, man, that is the most awesome. For me, that's super empowering because they're not tethered to anything. And I keep trying to encourage them not to reach for what they believe is outside validation and just to accept that they have literally built something all on their own and have a direct relationship with their own audience. Please don't give that away to somebody else.
Absolutely.
You don't understand your own power. And the belief that these people paying you this amount of money to do X is the same thing is a misnomer. Those two things are not the same. You don't even know who they're going to market it to. They don't even know who your audience is. They don't even care who your audience is. You're a widget that's supposed to bring your audience to them. So if you're going to be played, be smart about that. And if you're going to jump into business, know that you're a human commodity. You're a brand. Know your power.
Yo, and one thing I commend to you about your power is the powers that you have and what you're capable of doing. Your writing game is cold. Your comedy game was cold. And at one point in time, you decided to leave it behind. I was watching an interview where you was talking about, you saw writers, say that, Orlando Jones, has done this buffoon work before. And you made comparisons to other people who have made that pivot and did other things, but never were viewed in that light. How hard was it for you to leave something that, some people may have looked at as your comfort zone because you were great in that space, to go do something that now you're even greater in?
I just got tired of the double standard. God rest his soul, my fan Bernie Mac. I remember he was doing Head of State with Chris Rock, and I remember looking at some of the reviews after the film came out and just them commenting on his eyes. And I was like, man, y'all don't comment on Ben Stiller's eyes. Like, what is?
Yeah.
I don't. What are we talking about right here? So. I just felt like, you become successful in a space and then the way you look, the way you respond and do a reaction. Oh, he's got bug eyes. Okay, so now he's a buffoon. Okay, now he's a jigaboo. Okay, now he's a sellout. Just the way that narrative got laid out. And then also the way that, sometimes your own people jump into that narrative because they don't know no better. And you can't be mad at them, right? At the end, I mean, I guess you could, but for me, it was like, I can't be mad at them. I get it. So I just felt like if I was going to have integrity as a performer, if I was going to do what Peter Sellers did, if I was going to do what, a lot of the people who I looked up to did, I was just going to have to pivot and be, and hold to my convictions. So I just said no for a long time. And that was really it. And, I got a lot of pushback from it, from people who, thought it was a mistake and thought that, but I also understood it hurt their pockets too. So, but my thing is that I kept trying to explain it's not about pockets, it's about integrity. What I'm gonna do 25 years down the line, my kids got to look back and say, that's who their daddy was. Well, what you gonna do about that for me then? How does this money solve the perception problem that they find themselves in? Oh, you're not thinking about that because your kid doesn't have to deal with any of those scenarios because it's a different scenario, because there's an automatic belief system that my pigment makes me less valuable. Well, I got 2 girls, their gender makes them less valuable. So I'm not playing that game, dude. I'm not playing a part of that game. So for me, at this point, I feel like it's important to stand up for those things that are inequitable, particularly things that hurt us financially, because those things in the system have to be fixed. If you just said something to me, I could care less about blowing the whistle because you said something silly. I don't care about words. That's adorable. But things that hurt us economically and things that we know that our children are going to one day walk into those exact same situations, I think it's incumbent upon us, at least for me as a parent, it's incumbent upon me to fight that battle. And I'm mindful there's so many that's a luxury.
Yeah.
So many people can't do that because they gotta feed their families, right? My family was one of those families. Plenty of times my mama, my grandmama, my aunties wanted to tell somebody, my dad wanted to tell somebody to kiss their ass. You know what I'm saying? But that wasn't gonna pay for private school, you know what I'm saying? For me. So they made those, and I understand that. So for me, I have a double duty here to stand up because I have the ability to stand up. I have enough autonomy to be able to do that. For me not to stand up is the worst of all because I'm privileged. And I have to look at that as I make my decisions. I think we as the privileged people get so busy bitching about stuff, we forget that we talking to people who don't have our privileges and we act like, oh, you can do the same thing I can do. And I realize it ain't the same. And that's why I believe it's incumbent upon me to say something when I need to say something. So I really try and take that to heart, but I take that to heart because the people that raised me made that clear to me. And they put that at my doorstep and asked me what kind of man I wanted to be. And so I felt like I had to step into the lineage that they laid down. So really I'm walking on shoulders, man. I'm not doing nothing alone.